Hey guys, Poro here with another Worlds 2025 breakdown, this time for BLG from the LPL. Now, for people following these videos as they come out, you might find the video order a bit weird. First we did all three LCP, then the LCK 4 seed, and now the LPL 1 seed? What's up with that? It's pretty simple, I'm just doing it based on which teams have confirmed their seed first. LCK 1 through 3 order hasn't been determined yet, so I'm skipping those and moving on to the teams we do know. And we know BLG will be the LPL 1 seed after defeating Top Esports in a 5-game banger in Grand Finals, which is a result that surprisingly was not expected. People who don't watch the LPL might see this as completely normal. They've been one of the most dominant teams for the past 3 years and kept 4 of the 5 players on their roster. They also made it to MSI as the number 2 seed, showing that they've had good results all year. What reason is there to believe that they might not be the unstoppable force we saw earlier? Well, BLG have been having major jungle issues for all of 2025. People may remember that coming into Worlds 2024, we didn't actually know who would be the jungler who would play. Shone had been on the team for a while, but Wei was the one who got them through playoffs and was looking great as well. In the end, Shone ended up getting the spot as BLG fought their way through bracket stage, but it was pretty clear he wasn't sticking around. BLG started the year with Wei, but quickly ran into problems. By the end of Split 2 regular season, they decided enough was enough and they benched Wei for Beichuan, who was maybe only the 7th or 8th best jungler in the region, but gave BLG a honeymoon phase where they were able to scrape together a 2nd place finish just in time for MSI. While Beichuan played at MSI, it certainly wasn't pretty, and there was speculation BLG would cycle through a 4th jungler in less than a year. At this time, BLG decided to pick up Shadow, who was again a jungler people viewed as not much better than the 7th or 8th best in the region. BLG then made their way through a tough regular season by alternating between Beichuan and Shadow, finishing with an unclean 10-4 record before playoffs. Once in playoffs, we still had no clue who BLG would go with as their starter. Beichuan looked like he was going to be the starter after Shadow played a mediocre game 1 against JDG, which allowed Beichuan to swap in for the remaining 4 games as BLG picked up the series win, and Beichuan would then play all 4 matches against IG as Shadow sat on the bench. But against Top Esports, things would change. In the upper bracket finals, BLG started Beichuan so he could play his 9th game in a row, and all seemed well. But after losing game 2 and 3 with Beichuan having an absolute 0-8 Morgana jungle stinker, BLG made the decision to swap in Shadow to try and save their series chances. And Shadow absolutely delivered, playing out 2 very good games to send Top Esports to the lower bracket. When BLG rematched Top Esports in Grand Finals, they tried to start Beichuan again, but that would only last 1 game as Shadow played the other 4 and had some standout performances to get BLG the title. So as of right now, it looks like Shadow will be the starter, but we don't know for sure and BLG might continue rotating the 2. One thing that's definitely clear is that BLG's run to the title was messy and uncertain, and the team definitely has issues. They also have a number of strengths though, so let's dive into the players to see who we're working with. Bin has been the top laner for BLG for 4 years now, and during that time he's made a name for himself as an aggressive carry player who's spent time on and off lists of the best top laners in the world. As the greatest Chinese top laner of all time already at just the age of 21, it normally wouldn't be a surprise to see him at the top. However, it could be argued that this has been one of his weaker splits. Heading into playoffs, he wasn't even viewed as a top 3 top laner of the region, with people putting him behind The Shy, 369, and Flandre. One change Bin has made to his gameplay this split is that he's been more willing to accept his role as not the focus of the team. In the past, he would prioritize champions like Jax, Camille, and Fiora, but this split he's taken a backseat and locked in champions like Sion, Ornn, Renekton, and Yorick. One change Bin has not made to his gameplay though is his inability to not play as aggressively as possible. It doesn't matter if you give him Ornn, he's still going to find a way to drop 10 kills anyway. I'm not kidding by the way, he had a 10-1 Ornn game in regular season. He loves going for 1v2 outplays, and he loves staying aggressive on timers you wouldn't expect him to, even if it leads to his own death. Playing against someone like that is mentally exhausting, and Bin might be the top laner who applies the most pressure in the world. And while it took him some time to adjust to that new champion pool, he found his form again in playoffs and played like the best top laner for that stretch of series. It's been up and down for sure, but you can expect the Bin you already know and love for Worlds. Oh, and side note, I saw that Riot is buffing Jax by a pretty sizable margin, and they specifically noted that they want to see it played a lot at Worlds. This is obviously a massive buff to Bin, and everyone has the right to be terrified. As mentioned before, it seems like Shadow will be the team's starting jungler as of right now, so we'll do Shadow first. For Western fans, this name might be familiar. Shadow is Italian and played in the LEC with Mad Lions. He made it to Worlds in 2020, but after a disappointing showing, he didn't receive any meaningful offers and had to take a split off before getting an offer from bottom tier LPL team LGD. He had some pretty bad placements in LPL for a while before finding his way onto FPX and making a decent playoffs run this year in Split 2, where BLG made the decision to pick him up. There really wasn't any kind of crazy rise to top tier player or anything. He went from kicked out of the LEC to bottom tier LPL to mediocre LPL to being the first European to ever win the league. I personally don't think Shadow is an insanely good jungler or anything, but he's definitely had some great games in Split 3 and especially in playoffs. People have been giving him his flowers for his Grand Finals play, and I think it's well deserved. I expect Shadow to be fine at Worlds, but nothing special for Eastern standards. I also think Beijuan will get some games, and Beijuan is definitely a more interesting player to look at. He has higher upside than Shadow in my opinion, but also ints a lot more. At MSI, I thought Beijuan truly had some horrendous individual performances, and that trend hasn't really stopped. It seems like BLG really want to play Beijuan to see what he's got, but he keeps delivering terrible games. That said, I do think Beijuan complements BLG's playstyle. He's pretty good at playing for his lanes early, which allows BLG to get consistent leads when they have him. The issues start to come once mid-game starts, which is where his inting playground truly shows up. I wouldn't be shocked if BLG try to play Beijuan in game 1 of any series they play, and then use Shadow as the consistent backup option if Beijuan starts running it down. Knight is the greatest Chinese mid laner of all time, and he just claimed his 6th LPL title. He has multiple stretches over his career where he's been a top 2 mid laner in the world, and he's always got a terrifying champion pool to play against as well. What makes Knight so interesting to watch comes from the way he wins his games. Other all-time great mid laners like Faker, Chovy, and Rookie made a name for themselves by taking over games with pure lane domination and mechanics. Knight's mechanics are solid of course, but his true strength is his playmaking, and that's what makes him unique. He's always excelled at champions that have go buttons and engage tools, or control champions who like to play patient and with space in teamfights. On the other hand, he's never quite grasped the 1v9 hypercarry style with champions like Azir, and you could say this has been one of his main weaknesses over the years. But when it comes to champions like Galio, Lissandra, Ahri, and just about any control mage, Knight is one of the best in the world. He also has 0 games of it this split, but I want to remind people that Knight was once considered the best Sylas in the world as well. It's not like he's dropped it either, it's just that every team bans it all the time once they get deep enough into Fearless where Sylas starts becoming a real threat. Also, to bring more attention to my point earlier on his champion pool, I just checked and Knight has played an absurd 14 champions in just the 4 series BLG played in playoffs. That's actually insane. There are players who only play 5 or 6 champions in the same time frame. He also played 18 champions in Split 2, which might be the highest I can remember seeing this year, which is just crazy. Elk is probably the most mentally ill bot laner in the world right now. I cannot think of an ADC more psychotic than Elk is, other than OMG Abel back when he played. There really isn't too much to Elk's game. He has great mechanics, and more than maybe any other player in the world on any role, he believes in his mechanics and will skill check his opponents at every opportunity he gets. This leads to both positives and negatives for the team. At his best, he's pulling off the craziest highlight reel you've ever seen in your life, but at his worst, he's literally just inting and loses his team the game. I have to say that personally, I feel like Elk hasn't ever looked as good internationally as he does domestically. He hasn't looked bad internationally or anything, but I don't think the world truly has gotten to see just how much of a lunatic Elk is when he's in the zone. Finally, we have On, who has quickly built up a reputation for being one of the more coin flippy players the LPL has to offer. It's kind of odd because I never thought of On as being like this in past years. It's basically just this year where he's been racking up the KDA nightmares. But that aside, On does everything you would want your support to do. For every terrible engage, he also has a fantastic one, and he's willing to play a number of range supports to win lane if that's what the team comp calls for. A fun little lane Elk and On like to run in late Fearless is Caitlyn Elise. If you get to game 4 or 5 against this team and had shown any weakness in the bot side laning department at all, those two have zero hesitation to just instant lock Caitlyn Elise and play for Lane Kingdom. It's been working as well, the combo is 3-0 in playoffs and all 3 games were stomps. I know On left much to be desired at MSI, but I think people should give him another chance. When he's on his A game, he's one of the best in the world. BLG as a team are basically just a bunch of side lane psychopaths running around while Knight attempts to put out the fires and then inevitably gets drawn in and creates more fires anyway. They're a very fun team to watch who play on enough of a knife's edge that you never know if they'll stomp the enemy or throw the game. The fact that they can't seem to find a jungler to play consistently for the team is definitely a cause for concern, and we've seen every jungler go through an initial honeymoon phase where everything is working, into a drastic fall from grace in the months after. If that's the situation BLG gets stuck in at Worlds, it won't be a pretty tournament for them, but I think their ceiling is as high as it gets, and they should definitely be viewed as potential contenders. Something random I noticed when watching their games in playoffs is that this team might be the best Otacon team I've seen. My knowledge of Otacon setups is only decent at best of course, but they check off all of the boxes I like to see checked off every time, and as a result they end up winning most of their Otacon contests. It's definitely a trend I'll be continuing to look at, because this could end up becoming a major strength for the team if true. Every team globally seems to struggle on Otacon, so having a team be good at it could be a game changer. One thing I worry about for this team is if they'll have the ability to win from behind. We saw them struggle with this at MSI, and it's not like the problem seems to have gotten that much better. Their games against top esports were basically just whoever won early game would stomp the other team into oblivion, which isn't the most promising ever when top esports also historically have lost games internationally because of this problem. Overall, I think BLG have a very high ceiling and also a surprisingly low floor. If everything goes right, they have potentially top 2 players in 3 or 4 different roles. If things go wrong, they'll have a dysfunctional mid-jungle, an inting bot duo, and a top laner who's out of form. I could see this team getting to grand finals, but I could also see a world where a tough enough draw could see them bowing out in Swiss stage. I really have no idea what to make of this squad as a whole, but I think they'll be fun to watch either way. That's all I have for you for this one. 5 down, 12 to go. I recently started a Patreon for people who want to support me more while I'm making these videos. I have 3 tiers, each with varying amounts of benefits including different types of behind the scenes content, and even a custom Poro drawing that I'll display in video outros. If that interests you, check out the Patreon link in the description. I'll see you all for the next one. Bye!